Hey, how's it going and welcome to another video. So about a month ago at this point, I asked you guys if you have a favorite or most relatable Arcana in Persona. Sorry it took me so long to get around to these, I was taking a shower. But yeah, I figured this would be a pretty fun thing to talk about. Like, I already did my own video about the Emperor Arcana, and I think those kinds of conversations about like your favorite Arcana or the one that you find the most relatable are always a lot of fun, because they're just a really neat sort of like personality building exercise and like good way to kind of analyze yourself, I think. So I always like seeing which Arcana people tend to like associate themselves with. And if you like Persona, consider checking out my Twin Wardens or 2000 IQ Killjoy Detective shirt at fithersjail.com, link in the description. And huge thank you to everybody who went and bought something. Like, the sales on this stuff has been astronomically better than I ever could have expected. Like, I've been planning a trip to Japan for the end of the year, you know, knock on wood, hoping it actually happens, but the support you guys have shown on the merch has absolutely helped me out enormously. I am so much closer to having that actually happen thanks to y'all. Yeah, thanks so much. Fithersjail.com, check it out. Alright, let's get into it, starting with Damien R, who says, I vibe with Hierophant. I'm the honorary middle-aged white dad of my friend group. I'm a high schooler. And also, I ain't gay, but Sojro's voice does things to me. Oh yeah, Sojro's voice, Jameson Price, I think is his name. That guy is a legend, dude. He's also the narrator in Catherine. That's like one of my favorite roles of his, and yeah, Sojro's awesome. Hierophant in general, I think, has been like pretty good consistently throughout like, you know, at least the 3, 4, 5 games. Like, I really like the socialing with Bunkichi and his wife. And then Dojima's obviously amazing, Sojiro, so I'd say Hierophant has done a pretty good job for itself. Dust Turbine Alt says, I like the Death Arcana because of how each social link is pertaining to the Arcana's concept itself. Pharos' social link being about approaching and accepting one's death, Hisano's social link being about accepting the death of another, and Tei's social link being about saving someone from death. Reminds me of our mortality and what we can do about it. Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. I've never really thought about it that way in terms of, like, Tei's social link, even though she's, you know, a death character, her, like, confidant is more about saving life and, like, trying to maintain life, which is obviously another sort of aspect of death and, like, the human experience, I guess. So, yeah, I think that's a really cool way of looking at it. Price Will Games says, I relate to justice. The card is really about finding your own set of moral principles and dealing with unfortunate circumstances in your own way. I can personally relate to this. In P3, Chihiro is accused of stealing money, but due to her own social phobia, she struggles to clear her name. Social anxiety is something I can certainly relate to, and I'm guessing quite a few others can too. Heh, me included, dude. Nanako in P4 is interesting. I think Kanji put it best. She has to lie to herself to not fall apart. She is lonely, and in all honesty, she's a very tragic character when you wipe away the rose-tinted glasses that covers almost all P4 characters. Akechi, my favorite Persona character. I can relate to him immensely. I'm not an idiot who says he did nothing wrong, because he absolutely did, but it is worth understanding his perspective. Akechi is a product of a cruel upbringing, and I know and have seen firsthand the resentment that leads to. So yeah, my favorite Arcana and the one I relate to the most with is Justice. Kai says, for me, the Hangman Arcana has always resonated with me the most. I've always felt myself being extra empathetic to those characters, and I can relate to almost all of them in some way, since they all harbor a lot of grief, guilt, and or sorrow for one reason or another. Baofu blaming himself for the death of someone, and Maiko struggling to comprehend her parents' divorce strike a particular chord with me. Yeah, I like how the Hangman characters all kinda sorta deal with a similar topic of like, family issues, just in a different way. Like for Maiko, it's her parents' divorce, for Naoki, it's, you know, the loss of his sister. So I think that stuff's pretty cool. I guess, fortunately, I can't really relate too heavily, because like, my parents got divorced when I was like a little baby. Like, I don't even really have memories of them being together, so a lot of them are characters I can't necessarily like super relate to, but nonetheless, I think I like pretty much all the Hangman characters. Nebulistic says, I like the Moon Arcana a lot. One reason is that they have a hard time trying to accept themselves because of fear. Another is just that I relate to Ebihara and Mishima. Yeah, I think to some extent I do kind of relate to Mishima. Like, I think most people's sort of default reaction to Mishima is being like, I'm not like Mishima, dude. They say as they type in the fucking general chat of the Discord server they're in, but yeah, Moon is kind of a weird one for me, because like, I really like a lot of the kind of traits and like themes of Moon, but most of the Moon characters I just don't like. You know, like Nozomi, I did a whole ass video on him. My cat decided to come see me. Hey bear, what's going on? What's your Arcana? Then, like, Ebihara is not a character I'm crazy about, and then Mishima is like, damn, I kind of see a little bit of myself in him. But I don't know, I like Mishima. I've never had, like, a problem with him. Ara Threat says, I personally really like the Star Arcana. Teddy's journey into self-discovery was really interesting to watch, and the conclusion and acceptance that he is a shadow, and that despite that he will continue to keep living, is something that I really like about his character. It's his humanity that really draws me to like the Star Arcana. Plus, you can now fuse Hallel the Light Bearer is genius. Yeah, like, even though I poke fun at Teddy, because he's kind of just an easy punching bag, like, I do legitimately think his kind of journey of, like, figuring out what he is pretty interesting. Like, the parts when he shows up in the Velvet Room and he's like, I'm a shadow, it's genuinely kind of sad to see. Trickster says, Justice Arcana, mainly because I really like Metatron in P5, its design, what it represented, etc. But also because I believe it to be one of the most fascinating and important Arcana, and the people it's usually connected to turn out to be some of my favorite characters. Having to face some sort of trial and find the right path for yourself, while also trying to establish your sense of morality and truth, are just really cool and interesting to me. Zephyr, or something, says, always been the fool, cause I don't talk to or hardly talk, and yet people still talk and want to become friends with me, while also telling me their struggles. I also have the weirdest craving for coffee-flavored gum. You know, shout out to Iggy, but yeah, I think to some extent, a lot of, like, especially introverted people can definitely relate to the feeling of the fool. This idea that kind of, like, you're sort of starting fresh and, like, you don't really have a whole lot of people to talk to. I think that's kind of been me for, like, most of at least throughout my time in school. Like, I obviously had people I talked to, but I never really, like, went to hang out with anybody, so I think I've said this in a couple videos, but I think one of the reasons why Persona 3 especially, like, clicked with me so bad is that I had played it after I had been dropped out of high school for a few months. So, you know, obviously I was lacking that kind of, like, day-to-day experience of, like, living a life and interacting with people. And so just having that as an almost sort of substitute, it was very therapeutic for me. Ani Dream says, Akinari's socialing in P3 really touched me and made me really sad when he passed. It made me so happy that he died a happy death. It felt so real and made me want to appreciate life more. Surprisingly, Mishima's socialing was relatable because of his constant desire to be a hero and feeling like a nobody. I really liked it because I felt the same way as him, and if I was a confidant, I would probably be Moon or Hermit. Kanji's socialing was also good, because I too was questioning my sexuality, and then after being introduced to Kanji, I realized it doesn't matter. It helped take a lot of stress off. Toke says, I can relate to the Moon Arcana characters a lot, mainly Mishima. While I hate to admit it, Mishima reminded me of myself when I played P5, kinda awkward in public, gets absorbed in things, and overall isn't the best person. And the only reason I originally liked Mishima was because I saw myself in him, and after all of it, he acknowledges the mistakes he made, which also makes me like him more. I also like the Sun Arcana, but I'd rather not write a paragraph when I'm going to bed. Damn, a lot of Mishima kinnies in their responses. Drill to the Heaven says, I'd say Chariot. Chie's goal of self-improvement, haven't finished 3 and 4, is something I admire and can relate to, as it's something that I don't want to ever lose sight of. Same with Ryuji, he just wanted to help out his track buds despite the past and get better himself. This nicely reflects the Chariot's themes of forward momentum and overcoming conflict. I always forget that Aegis is a Chariot character for some reason. I think I always more associate her with the Aeon, but yeah, Chariot's cool. I like that it has a very kind of consistent, like, theme going on of sports, and, like, I guess in Chie's case it's kind of like martial arts, sorta, but they're all very outdoorsy social links, which I think is pretty cool. Ape says, I've always really loved the friendships from the Magician Arcana, and feel like they can get a little overhated sometimes. Kenji especially, because he was always such a good bro and nobody likes him. Hey man, I like Kenji, he's cool. My man's hunting milfs, bruh. That's commendable. But yeah, it does seem kind of dicey in terms of, like, how well-received magician characters are. Like, Kenji and Morgana are probably the two, like, a lot of people obviously like Morgana, but you bring up Morgana in a conversation, somebody's gonna roll up and be like, did you know that in the Okuma arc? And then it's like, yeah, okay. And then there's, like, Yosuke. I don't know what the deal is with Yosuke. It seems like there's a lot of people who fucking adore Yosuke, and then there's a lot of Yosuke haters. It's kind of weird. And then Junpei is the man. I will hear no Junpei slander. Flipper703 says, I relate a lot to magician-type characters due to their general dorkiness and simp tendencies. They do all kind of have simp tendencies now that I'm thinking about it. Junpei not so much. Like, Junpei's pretty alpha. He has his own woman, like the Chad Junpei, the virgin Kenji, Yosuke, and Morgana. Lando That G says, been liking Emperor the past 2 Persona games. Hey, me too. Yusuke and Kanji are both great for their own unique Emperor-like elegance. Yusuke for his artistic qualities and Kanji's fun, brash personality. People of the Emperor Arcana tried to do normal things as dominating and cool looking as possible. And I too enjoy doing things as elegantly as possible. I got something Akihiko can dominate, if you know what I'm saying. No, not really, though. Like, even though I'm not really somebody who's, like, dying for Persona 5 Arena, I think if it came out, it'd be cool, but one thing I would absolutely want to see is playable Yusuke in a fighting game. Good heavens. Because I really liked Kanji and Akihiko in Persona 4 Arena. Those are 2 of the characters I played the most, so... Man, Emperor is so highly blessed. They can't fuck up an Emperor, it's impossible. Jay Steelman says, I really relate to the Fortune characters. I respect the desire to control your future and accomplish your goals with your own hands no matter what happens. I recently ended up homeless and I'm sticking it out, so characters like Keisuke and Naoto making hard decisions about their future is definitely something I can identify with, especially right now. Damn, I'm sorry to hear that, homie, that's rough, like, but yeah, hopefully things work out for you, man. Like, obviously this was posted a month ago, so I'm not sure if there's been any new developments. Ami Or says, devil characters are snarky fuckers. The gritty adult characters like Tanaka and Oya I really love. Yeah, something I always really like is the like really slimeball kinds of like social links and confidants. I'm really hoping in the year 2045 when Persona 6 comes out, there's just a lot of like scum that you can become friends with. Like, Oya I think is less of like a shifty character. I mean, she's a little shifty, but she's more so kind of just drunk. Like, yeah, hopefully the next devil character is just like a real fucking sleazeball. That'd be great. Matt Patch says, I relate with the Sun Boys in trying to come out of the darkness in their lives by going forward. Either with my boy No Good Tora moving forward from his mistakes of the past to become a better person, my man Akinari trying to write his book and looking at his few moments in life with happiness, or with your girl Ayane, as my girl, in trying to gain the confidence they need in life. Sun represents to me in trying to become happy or see the light in life, and I honestly want that in life and to feel happy. Yeah, I think that's something I like a lot about the Sun characters, is just like, them trying to stay positive and see the good in the world despite the fucking misery that surrounds them. Akinari obviously probably has it the worst, because he's dying, but then you have like No Good Toro, who's just like a political laughingstock and just gets bullied every time he talks. Then there's Ayane, who's dealing with like her own self-confidence and her love of music and the fact that she's like, not necessarily the best at it. And then there's Yumi with all the crap going on in her life, so yeah, I think that's cool and pretty kind of aspirational. It's just like having these characters like Akinari, who's actually literally dying and will just greet you with a smile and be like, I'm working on my book. It's like, I think that's pretty cool. Isabel Hughes says, I really like the meaning of the Temperance Arcana. The principles represented by the card, balance, patience, and moderation are all values I like to live by. I always try to balance work and play, moderate my health, and have patience for anything and everything that happens. You sound like a far more, like, well-adjusted human than I am. Dog, I woke up at, like, midnight. I'm the opposite of balance. But if we are talking about favorite characters represented by a particular arcana, I love my Emperor boys, Akihiko especially. Hell yeah, me too. AC308 says, Akinari is probably my favorite social link. It's hard to explain, but it's so powerful on impact. The ending where you show his mother the notebook killed me. Then you get the relation of his book to my boy Kanji's social link, which made me a bit sad after playing P3. Yeah, that's a really, really nice little sort of cameo that, like, his book shows up, even if it's just in a minor way in Kanji's social link. I think that's very satisfying, giving that little, like, wink to Persona 3 fans to, like, let them know that, yeah, man, he, in some way, like, he made it, dude. He got his book published, he did leave his impact on the world. Jeb says, the Sun Arcana. Man, Sun is popular. The Sun Arcana social links always end up being some of my favorites in the Persona games. Akinari's in P3 is the story of a man trying to find happiness and resolution in the last moments of his life. Ayane is the precious Pichu girl who just needs a bit more confidence. And Tora legitimately is one of my favorite confidants because of his undying optimism despite having his political career ruined by being dragged through the mud. Even though they represent the Sun Arcana, their stories are all ironically about how they withstand the negative situations they find themselves in with their innate happiness and hope. They generally end up with them finding some sort of meaning in the lives they led, or searching for the answers they need to move on. It gives me a bit of optimism seeing them overcome their own problems while keeping up their own happiness. Super Soupy says, the Lovers Arcana consistently has some of my favorite characters in the series, especially after experiencing them and their personalities in the dancing games. That being said, my favorite is the Empress because Haru. Yeah, I wish I liked lovers a little bit more. Like, An is one of my favorite, like, female Persona characters, but then there's, like, Yukari and Rise, who both kind of get on my nerves, but Empress is pretty baller, though. Bracy says, Magician is probably my favorite Arcana. I like the closest friend vibe they give, and kind of relate to their self-doubt. One of my favorite social links though is Naoki. Gave me a whole new perspective on death, and the emotional moments in it really hit me. I also like the Moon Arcana, but that's for similar reasons to Magician. Big Cheese says, I relate to the spin-off Arcana, which is held by Sophia, Zenkichi, Shomi Nazuki, and Funky Student. My dad works at Atlas, and he says those 4 will all be playable in Persona 6, along with Nanako as the MC. Oh, let's go. Yeah, I like how in, you know, the spin-offs and, like, the sort of updated releases, they keep kind of, like, making up Arcana. Like, I don't know how much of that is just, like, they're finding really weird tarot decks or just taking, like, different language kind of translations of the Arcana and using those, but I don't know, I just find it kind of funny when they roll up with shit like the Jester and the Hunger. Counselor, that's another one. Maddie TD says, I would have to say that my favorite or most relatable Arcana would be the Fool. In 3 and 4, not so much in 5, the Fool Arcana is supposed to represent the player's progress through the game and their relationship with their teammates and friends. I really like this because it really shows how much you've grown since the beginning of your journey. I can relate to this Arcana on a personal level because I can tend to be really reserved around others when it comes to personal stuff. In my opinion, I see the Fool's journey as a story of sincerity. In order for the protagonist to complete that journey, they need to form genuine and meaningful relationships with those around them. And I think that's a lesson meant for everyone. Gustavo Tellez says the Hermit, specifically Futaba, is the one that I relate to the most because of her social struggles, isolation tendencies, and her quirkiness. I wasn't really social and didn't have that many friends in elementary school due to the fact that I was autistic. I was usually left alone as nobody knew what to do with me whenever I would have a fit. And it didn't really help the fact that my older brother and other kids would call me crybaby whenever I would have a meltdown. Sometimes I would either have to sit outside the classroom, stay in the nurse's office, or be sent home early. And so I was used to being alone. It wasn't until high school that, much like when Futaba joined the Phantom Thieves, I joined the school's marching band and I was able to improve my social skills, manage my emotions, and make new friends that I still talk to this day. Not to say that I've been cured of autism, it's still a struggle that I have to manage for the rest of my life, but for now I'm in a better place than I was as a child. And yes, I'm just as much as a perv as Futaba, just not outwardly per se. Yeah, this is something that I find I hear pretty often is like, autistic people relating to Futaba. You know, obligatory haha funny personas for autists, but no, I do think that kind of like social sim aspect is something that's probably very appealing to autistic people. Like, I don't have autism myself, so I can't really speak on it, but I do hear little stories and anecdotes from people who are autistic who are like, yeah, I really like Persona. It's kind of like nice having a sort of way to be social without, you know, actually interacting with people. So I think it's cool there's a sort of game series like that that can kind of be used as like a social outlet without actually having to like interact with people. Like I said, I think that's a big reason why I was so into Persona 3. It's just that, you know, social sim, like day-to-day life kind of stuff. Evangeline804 says, my favorite Arcana is Temperance. I almost always complete their links in every playthrough. The character stories I just really vibe with and they touch me. Babies was pretty much fun slice of life with English until his aunt died. I still remember how he described her death as taken away by the angels. Shaking my head, still salty he wasn't a romance option for Femc. They let you date the 10-year-old instead. Man, imagine going on a date with Bebe. That would be fascinating. Although I couldn't relate to Eri, I really like her story and feel like it represents a good number of people in society. I'm always glad when she patches things up with her stepson. Yeah, I actually plan on doing a video about her social link because I feel like hers and then like Shoes are probably the two social links like across all of Persona that you kind of see discussed the least. So I'm definitely interested in kind of taking a deep dive and figuring out like why that is. Kawakami also had a great story and character development, and I just like her as a person. I love how they implemented the start of her link into the story. Gotta love Becky, am I right? Yeah, dude. Digital Toaster says, Emperor, kanji in specific, as I was always into animals, sewing, and girly manga, and felt ashamed for being into that stuff just because I was a boy. So I was honestly taken aback as kanji was the first big manly dude who likes cute things that I feel was handled really well. Also, as a bisexual that's into femboys, I very much get kanji's attraction to Naoto when they first met. Yeah, I think between like now and when Persona 4 came out, it's definitely a lot more overall like acceptable to be into quote-unquote girly things. Like, people are obviously still assholes, but I think on the internet especially, like, it's a lot easier to just be like, yeah, I'm really into fucking, I don't know, Sailor Moon, or yo, check this out, guys, I got a sewing machine. Shit, if anything, I think that would make you more popular with ladies at this point. Like, you know, being into football, that's old news. Girls like guys that are into Oron High School Host Club now, I guess. Man, if only that was the case like 10 years ago for me. Ashton Price says, I feel like the Hierophant Arcana always has some amazing representation. The old couple in Persona 3, Dojima in 4, and Sojiro in 5, it always seems to have some great links. The storyline of the elderly couple in particular is always one that touches me. Yeah, I think Persona overall does a really good job with like its older character social links. I think it's a really nice kind of change of pace from like, you know, their day-to-day school life to just see this these miserable old people that are like, man, my wife is dead. Or like, man, our son is dead. And beyond just like Hierophant, I think characters like, you know, Mutatsu, the monk, Tanaka, Oya, are all really good examples of why you should never grow up ever. Hibiki says, Akinari or Persona 3's son. Hits me now more than ever. Before I thought it was a beautiful link about death and our own mortality and represent P3's themes personally. But in late 2019, I was diagnosed with a bone cancer, cured as of September 2020. Oh, let's fucking go, man. That's awesome. And that link hit so much more thinking about being 19 with the possibility of dying, and that link can get me to cry, which I struggle with. And its messages is something that I try to keep in my heart. But yeah, let's go, dude. That's awesome. Space L says, I'm a big fan of the people representing Magician and Star Arcanas. They feel like they have strengths and weaknesses that I can relate to. On a silly note, I heard someone use the Virgin Arcana as a comeback at one point. Yeah, fuck the Emperor. I'm officially a member of the Virgin Arcana now. Ian the Gamer Guy says, even though I relate most to the Moon, something about the Justice Arcana has always appealed to me. I like how each character who represents the Arcana are all wildly different from each other. It also has some of my favorite designs like Uriel, and I relate to seeking fairness and balance in life. Overall, I really like it. Yeah, even though I'm like a Chaos Boy for life, I definitely think that the Angels of SMT are like a lot cooler and more kind of coherent overall. Obviously, that's part of the point, is just that like the Chaos Demons are so kind of wild and like not really as unified, but yeah, I always look forward to using the various like Justice and kind of like Judgment personas because they just look so cool. That one lonely gamer says, I always like the Magician or Strength Arcana. The Magician I can relate to a lot, and Strength just always somehow manages to have my favorite characters. Yeah, Strength is another one that I think I've always kind of consistently liked. Like, obviously, Koromaru is one. How can anybody not like Koromaru? And then you have, like, Yuko, who I like a lot. The two sports boys, and then Caroline and Justine. I don't know if you've noticed, but I like Caroline a lot. Hattie the Hat says, I relate the most to the Magician Arcana. It stands for determination, imagination, wisdom, and an understanding of the world. I feel as though I possess some of the traits regarding the Arcana, as well as certain characters involved with it too. These characters being Yosuke and Morgana. Yeah, I think a lot of the Magician characters are like, I think they're a lot smarter than people kind of realize, or maybe even themselves. Like, they kind of like overplay their stupid traits sometimes, but Yosuke is actually like a low-key kind of smart dude. Like, most of the investigation team's investigation is done by like Narukami, Yosuke, and Naoto. Like, those are the three that figure out, oh, wait a minute, Adachi is super sus. And then Morgana obviously has like probably more knowledge on the metaverse than basically anybody. But yeah, I think that's a pretty cool sort of aspect of their characters. Nin10x123 says, Emperor, I relate a lot to Kanji and Yusuke. I love and talk and baby talk to cute things like dogs and cats, but I wear dark colored clothes and leather jackets because I think they look badass. Leather jackets are pretty cool. I actually have a leather jacket. I think I've worn it like once. I'm waiting for the fucking Mad Max apocalypse so I can whip that thing out. Also, I am an artist on the autism spectrum, so I've been told I'm weird sometimes, like my beliefs in positive nihilism. Nothing truly matters, and there is no inherent meaning to life, so anything can matter, and you can have any meaning to your own life. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way of looking at it, that life is kind of like this blank canvas, which, like, to some people that's really scary, the idea of like, oh fuck, oh god, what do I do? Does anything matter? But then it's also like, yeah man, it's a blank canvas, just do whatever you want, fuck it. But yeah, I think that's a pretty cool kind of way of looking at life. Zio Leviathan says, The Fool, I love all the protagonists. The Fool gets some great personas like Izanagi, Arsene, Loki, Dionysus, and Black Frost. Hell yeah, Black Frost, dude. I also like how it kind of represented a normal person who wants to do the right thing, even if it's hard, and becomes better for it. The Ultimate McNugget Nagi says, I think my favorite one is Magician, though my personality test says I'm more like the Moon Arcana, which I also found relatable. Yeah, like, I've taken a lot of those, you know, Arcana tests. I usually end up with, like, Moon or Tower. I think a lot of those tests tend to be kind of naturally skewed towards, like, particular Arcana. Like, it's not uncommon to post one of those tests and see just like an entire server getting, you know, moon and tower or devil if they're really edgy. So at least for me, I put a lot less stock into like some bullshit tests and more just kind of like, yeah, I really relate to this one. I like this one. I like the characters of this one. It's not like you go get a driver's license and they ask you for your Arcana. It's all kind of just for fun at the end of the day. Facial Ren says, my favorite Arcana is probably death. Might be a bit biased because of Thanatos and Persona 3 MC, but the concept of accepting death and the cycle of living and dying always fascinated me. It also pertains one of the many lessons I've learned from the series. Death may be inevitable, but we shouldn't let that define the life we live now, nor should we passively accept our demise without doing what we want in life. If Minato taught us anything, it's that life is a precious gift. Orion's Fate says, gotta be the Chariot for me. All of them have these deep dreams and desires, but they are held back by the world. Ryuji wanting to run and be a better person after what happened with Kamoshida, Chie trying to be herself despite her insecurities, Aigis wanting to be understood and be human despite being a robot, and Kaz trying to run despite his injury. Their determination despite what they're facing is so endearing to me, and they always end out in a good way to reward their efforts. They also tend to be underdogs due to their circumstances, which just makes you want to root for them even more. Hopefully P6 keeps up the trend of endearing Chariot Arcanas. William Umbernock says, for me the most relatable or favorite Arcana would be the Tower. The process of pridefully building this tower, only for it to collapse at the penultimate step. I have lived through this process more times than I like to think about. Damn, I got like a chill reading that. That's a very relatable sentence. I relate pretty hard to the monk and the tutor kid, but Smokem didn't really do a good job of conveying the themes, I think. I would say it kinda did. Like, the overall kind of problem he has going on is that he thinks he's like the hottest shit for being the best at the video game. So I think if you look at it from that perspective of like, the tower being his skill at the video game, then it kind of works, but his confidant is like half about that and then half about his stuff with his mom, so... Clockwork Esper says, celebrate life's grandeur, its brilliance, its magnificence. I've always felt a personal connection to the Empress Arcana, despite being a dude and the card usually being affiliated with women because of the themes of generosity and plenty. The Empress is someone who has much and gives generously to all who come to her, and I admire that. See, I like how you see the Empress characters and you're just like, oh man, they're so generous and like loving and stuff, and I'm just like, rich mommy GF ooga. Austin Standridge says, oddly enough, I really like the full social links from P3 and P4. I just really like the idea of not only bonding with individual people, but creating this massive group dynamic. It's just really nice to have this ragtag bunch of misfits gathered together and form this big power group. Igor's confidant is also really interesting, but in a different way. I mean, the idea of bonding with a god is really wacky. It also feeds into the dark every man for himself feel the game tries to go for, but not having a group socially. Yeah, like, even though I'm not crazy about Yaudabouts, I do definitely think that the, like, fake Igor twist was really well done. And it's just kind of subtle enough to where, like, if you're going through it normally, you probably wouldn't really suspect anything. But on a repeat playthrough, you're like, yeah, wait a minute, this is not stuff Igor normally says. Because he's a lot more interested in, like, mwahaha, form connections and attain power. Whereas with the real Igor, the kind of like power benefit is like a secondary thing. For him, he's a lot more interested in the cultivation of like, you know, the social links and like the bonds with people. So I think that's a really cool sort of aspect of like the fake Igor. Miles Keanu says, I love the Magician Boys except Morgana, damn. There's just something about deep insecurities that are hidden by a facade of humor, happiness, or confidence that hits different. Yeah, I think Junpei is probably my favorite example of that, of just being this dude who like, really doesn't have that great of a home life, like, at all. Is actually kind of lonely and, like, lacking in confidence. And just the journey he goes through of, like, being so bitter towards the protagonist and ultimately, like, finding confidence in himself and, like, the bonds that he formed. I think that's pretty cool. Ezra Odeki says, I'm a fan of new content being added to games, so I can really appreciate the Counselor Arcana with Maruki, specifically its importance in unlocking the third semester. I also appreciate the establishment of Flow and Detox. It was nice to have those in battle. Oh man, those abilities are busted, dude. But yeah, Maruki's Confidant especially is like, maybe probably top 5 for me? It's hard to say, but Maruki is excellent. Niku says, ooh yes, Arcanas. My favorites would have to be Death from P3 and Magician in P4. An upwards death card in Tarot often means change and improvement, which is a belief that I hold dearly. Change is a beautiful thing. The Upwards Magician card is related to creativity and trickery, and I relate with that a lot. With P4 Magician in particular, Yosuke is a character I really do see myself with. Our struggles with insecurity, self-confidence, identity, sexuality, I relate to all of it. It's cool to see a character with struggles like me get to be a hero and discover and better themselves. I'll refrain from making a paragraph for P3 Death, but to put it simply, I also relate with Pharos, Ryoji, and Death to a certain degree. I've always found the concept of death fascinating, and it sucks that they're a pretty underrated character in my opinion. I'm currently learning tarot, so this topic within Persona means the world to me. Thank you for the question. No problem. Thank you for the answer. HKHK says, as of recently, I've found myself really connecting with the Chariot Arcana, as the overarching theme of self-improvement really has impacted me, as over the last year I've lost all my excess weight and gone from XXL to medium-sized clothing. Damn. Good for you, man. That's awesome. I think Ryuji trying to run even despite his leg really shows what good motivation can help accomplish. I always really love hearing stuff like that, like even beyond Persona. I just really like hearing, you know, the kind of impact that fiction can have on people. But yeah, that's really awesome, man. Good for you. The Thunder Drone says, honestly, I can relate to P4's Priestess Arcana the most. Wanting to run away and everything is better than it used to be was a comforting thought for some time. Yeah, I overall like Priestess. Like, Fuka is obviously probably my favorite Persona girl, and I like Makoto a lot. Yukiko's okay, she's just never been a character that's like super clicked with me, but having Priestess like associated with two of my favorite girls from two of the games I think is pretty good. Like, Priestess has been on a roll for me. Ultra says, the Hangman is one of the most consistent ones. I really like the Maiko social link in P3, Naoki felt like it had weight speaking to him in P4, and EY in P5 was interesting looking into the past of a Yakuza member struggling to cut ties with the organization. Overall, I was never disappointed speaking to a hangman. Ostrich Lord says, I'd say a combination of Sun and Chariot. I've been through a few rough patches the past couple years, and I'm trying to stay positive like the Sun characters. I do this by focusing on bettering myself and trying to improve as a person, so I'm strong enough to deal with the suck. Damn girl, you got me trying to deal with the suck right now. Because if I don't focus, I tend to spiral a bit. Ryuji really represents the way I try to act whilst in public, so nobody worries about me. Yeah, I think a lot of the time in life, like, most things are really outside of your control, you know? It's kind of hard to, like, stop bullshit when it starts. I think the best thing you can do is, like you said, like, just really work on improving yourself, like, cultivate skills, and just kind of be prepared for the onslaught that is existence. Mr. Top Jelly says Hermit, solely because I've lived through a similar situation as Futaba, and was able to connect with her because of that. Other than that, probably Chie, best meat girl, and Ryuji pretty cool too. I'm noticing I don't think anybody has mentioned Maya in Persona 3 or the Fox yet. I would be deeply surprised if somebody could relate to a fox. But yeah, I think out of the Hermit characters, like, she's definitely probably the easiest to look at and be like, yeah, man, I see some of myself in her. Orange and Black says, Strength always really struck me as a great arcana. Really like the themes tied to it, both inside and outside the game, especially how much of it goes beyond the surface level idea of physical strength. That being said, none of the strength social links really live up to the full potential of the arcana in my opinion, hoping Persona 6 knocks it out of the park. Yeah, I think like the strength arcana are overall pretty, like, they're okay social links. I think the one that bums me out the most is like the Caroline and Justine one. Mostly because I find those, like, you know, bring me certain Persona things to be kind of irritating. Like, I just look up a guide for that shit. But I'm glad they kind of made up for it in Royal with having, like, your little hangouts with them. Because I think that works way better. It's just, like, a bonding exercise between the twins. Because, you know, most of their link otherwise is just like, you brought the Persona, inmate. Good work. Next on the list. Oh boy, I slightly remember being Lavenza. V Doji says, personally, I have recently noticed how I have a very deep connection to the characters of the Priestess Arcana. From Fuka's shyness and need to improve at something she may not be good at, and the way she hides her interests even though she really enjoys them, and Yukiko and how in her social link she struggles with feeling as if she is unable to or not allowed to make her own choices, and even though in the end she still chooses to work at the inn, she does so of her own will, which shows how that's what she wanted was control in her life no matter where that led her, and how Makoto struggled with wanting to prove her worth by taking things into her own hand even if it was rash, or if she was quick to jump the gun. Also, the slap she gave Aiko to snap her back to reality connects the upright positioning of the Priestess Arcana and how it represents knowing one's true nature and not lying to yourself. Also in the end of her confidant when she mentions pursuing her passions and wants to be a policewoman and get into college, but not for the sake of another person or to show off, but because it is sincerely what she wants to do was amazing. Sorry for writing a whole heckin' essay. Hope you have a great day, Fither, and anyone else who sees this. Yeah, out of the Priestess characters, I think Fuka is definitely one that I kind of see the most of myself in. You know, just that overall kind of like shyness and like introversion and like wanting to be good at things and kind of prove yourself. I find all that pretty relatable. Just Call Me Milk says, I'm partial to both the Fortune and Sun. The stories that these characters in these arcana undergo have all either felt very similar to experiences I've had in my own life, or offered some of the best life lessons in the series. Akihiko Sanada, holy shit, it's the real Akihiko, says Hermit. I don't know why, the idea of somebody named Akihiko saying, yeah, I'm Hermit, is really funny to me. Hermit, I relate to Futaba a lot and really feel for her. And I feel that Toriumi also has relatable aspects about her that make Hermit really great. May not be the best in my opinion, it's my favorite and the most relatable. Hey, somebody mentioned Miss Toriumi, let's go. Speaking of Maya, One Jellyfish says, it's the Hermit Arcana for me because Maya in P3 will always be such a throwback to the good old days back when the internet was still considered something geeky and too niche for most people to be invested in. God, that takes me back. Like, obviously, I think every internet boomer is gonna say this, but good God, the internet was so much better like 10, 15 years ago. Now that, like, real life and the internet are basically just the same thing at this point, I feel like a lot of the kind of, like, almost inclusivity of being, like, a bunch of weirdos on the internet is kind of lost. Also, I'm biased because I personally relate to what the Arcana represents. Easy Fernandez says, I relate a lot to the Tower Arcana. I get high on my ass about certain things, and the world makes sure to slap me in the face and bring me back on track. On the other side, I always like the Emperor and Chariot Arcanas in the games. They represent great things, but it's mostly because some of my favorite characters belong to those. Witty Joke says, I love the Hierophant Arcana because it's always about dealing with a past but sudden loss. All of them have loved ones killed by cars. Oh my god, you're right. How have I never put that together? They all got fucking killed by cars. They end up feeling a lot more personal because of how specific the theme is, and I feel it's a big reason why a lot of Hierophant characters are fan favorites. Penta says Devil, definitely. Hell yeah, we got Devil Boy. Find it very relatable how every character of this Arcana doesn't give a damn about almost anything or anyone, but when they do, they give up their life to that. The way Tanaka uses his conniving nature to his advantage in order to grow his business is something I really see in myself, when I'm that into something as he is. And Sayoko and Oya's flirtatious interactions with the protagonist basically sums up most of my own interactions with people, as long as they let me keep going and don't find it weird. We got fucking Chad? Chad alert? Also some P1 love for Captain Naked Reiji. He's a really underrated character. As much as it isn't exactly resolved by the end of the game, I really like his revenge plotline. Plus he has hot abs, and who doesn't like that? Depends on who they're on. This is like weird tangent that has nothing to do with anything, but you know what's really premium that I don't think we see nearly enough is like femboys or twinks with abs. Is that slight bit of musculature, hoo-wee. The Burger System says, I personally feel like I'm a mix of priestess and lovers, because I have intellect and I'm diligent like many priestess characters, but I'm also affectionate and do artistic stuff, like Rise or An. Zombie Girl says, I absolutely adore the Devil social links. Even Oya, Tanaka, and the nurse from P4 gave me some of my favorite memories of the series. Not to say they are my favorite characters from each game, but I just adore interacting with, as Akechi would say, the trash of society. Yeah, like I said, man, I hope the next Devil character is just like a fucking sleazeball, dude. Waishni says the Temperance Arcana. The concept of struggling to balance your personal relationships with those you care about, along with the stress of work and serious stuff, is something that always struck a chord with me. Especially Kawakami from P5. The way she struggles with her teaching job in order to help her students, while also balancing all these other jobs, including being a maid, so that she can atone for what happened to one of her students, even though she's getting blackmailed into doing it, really gets to me. Skeld says, I really like the Universe Arcana because of its significance in Persona 3. There's no question that Makoto is the most powerful protagonist, because he's the only one who's able to attain the universe instead of the world. It was also just a really cool sequence, and it had a big impact on me. Yeah, I kind of hope the universe, like, remains a Persona 3 protagonist thing, because I think that makes him, like, super special. And it really gives the ending of Persona 3, I think, a very special kind of, like, oomph to it, because this man didn't just get the world, he got the universe. Azul says, probably High Priestess. All of them have some sort of expectation placed upon them by a family member. For Makoto and Yukiko, they have to constantly hear people talking them up every single day of their lives. And for Fugu, we don't even know if her issues with her parents are resolved. Yeah, I guess that's true. We don't really get like a definitive resolution about what actually ends up happening with her parents. I guess things ended up fine, but Fugu seems to be doing pretty well for herself. Super Spark says, the Arcana I really enjoy is the Hierophant. Not for myself though, I've had a lot of mentors over the years, and they've been some of the biggest influences in my life. So generally, I love all the Hierophant characters because they remind me of those people. I don't feel like I've ever really had, like, a mentor in my life. I think most of the teachers I've ended up having, like, I either actively disliked or thought they were fine. You know, sometimes people ask, like, oh man, who's somebody that you, like, look up to, or, like, who's your role model? And I don't really, like, have somebody like that. Akihiko Sanada Persona 3. Urameshi Trev says Empress. It has Yukino, Mitsuru, Margaret, and Haru. Need I say more, lol? Yeah, dude. Grand T says, I've always enjoyed Fortune Arcanas the most. Now that I think of it, Keisuke from Persona 3 might be one of my favorite social links of all time. I've also felt pressured by my parents to go one career path or another. If I had to choose a link that was the most relatable to me, it would be him. That's pretty cool to hear. I don't think I've ever really heard too many people be like, yeah man, Keisuke is like, I relate to him a lot. It usually tends to be more characters like Futaba is a big one. Kanji, like Makoto, you know, characters like that. So I think that you found somebody in Keisuke to really relate to. I think that's pretty cool and pretty unique. Perky says, my favorite and most relatable are Emperor, Empress, Hangman, and Sun. Emperor, overall great characters and social links. Excluding P3, didn't care too much for Hidetoshi compared to the other boys. I can relate to that feeling of wanting to have full control over personal issues or whatever, even though you have no idea how to. It's mostly just me liking the characters though. Empress, highly relate to this one. I'm very shitty when it comes to talking to people, so I can come off as pretty cold. I can also just relate to some of these characters' inner turmoils. Also, Alilat is funny. Booby. Yeah, booby. Hangman, these social links are slept on and deserve more love. My dumbass can't actually pinpoint what the shared message between these links are, but their individual narratives were relatable in their own ways. Very sad, but very cool. Sun, consistently some of the best social links throughout the series, Akinari, Ayane, Yoshida. They find themselves in relatively shit situations, but still strive for something better. Would it be a physical or mental thing? They all end with this kind of sense of accomplishment, even if it's solemn. It make my brain do the big think about life. Yeah, same, bro. Alright, that is our final one. But yeah, big thank you to everybody who made a submission, and sorry I couldn't have all of them on here. There were many submissions, so yeah, sorry if yours wasn't featured, but I think this was really cool. Like, just seeing how everybody kind of relates to these different Arcanas, like, I think we saw pretty much at least one of every Arcana pop up, other than like, you know, some of the more random ones like Faith or Aeon. But I think pretty much all of the major ones popped up at least once. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Thanks to everybody who made a submission. I'll see you guys next time.